they're posting their whereabouts, they're doing a bunch of different things. And honestly, if you understand how you move, that's called lacking, right?
I'm not saying music, there's not anything wrong with the music. I'm saying there's something wrong within the actions after the music. They're living out what they're talking about. There's a huge problem after they get in a position where they shouldn't have to. The hustle's supposed to get you out of the game, out of the grind of the streets, and put you in a better position to get off of that.
I agree,
but some of these guys like Pop Smoke,
okay,
nobody could have. He died in the hills, so it wasn't like a thing where he was in the streets. You know, that was something different.
But there's still a component. There's still a component of the streets with how he died, because first and foremost, what happens now is these kids are on social media and they're posting their whereabouts. They're doing a bunch of different things. And honestly, if you understand how you move, that's called lacking, right? Don't post your location. Don't post certain things, especially if you're there. So you're moving in a certain way, and that gets you caught up. So no, 100%. Pop is a very sad situation, but it still has something related to the streets, because, you know, if you post your location, there's wolves out here like, nah, we're going to get the drop on them. We watching your social media just to catch a victim. So like what you're saying is 100% true. But my thing is like this. Yeah, it takes more than hip hop. It takes parents, right? It takes leadership in the game, outside the game. But just think about this. It's going to be difficult for some of these young guys to listen to these OGs. So let's give an example, right? That's like saying, oh man, Rakim or KRS-One, he wants to talk to a little Uzi Vert or somebody who's 20 years old. First, there's a 30-year age gap. Then the next thing you got to think about is these kids are making so much money that they only respect money. So the message can be skewed because they're like, why am I listening to you and you broke? That's the part of the problem. So it's the ones that really have big pockets, big influence that can shape them if they look up to them. So it's few and far between right now. And unfortunately, you saw the situation where Master P was trying to give guidance to Kodak Black early on in his career, but he had to tell him, young brother, this game ain't free. You got to pay me. It's better to pay me than pay one of these sharks. And he didn't take that knowledge and heed that advice. So it's just kind of, it's very fickle, because we're dealing with underdeveloped brains. We're dealing with young men. A lot of times they're super rich and they have these things before they're 25 years old. They're glued to the phone. You got people to the left and the right telling them things. You got women inside their DMs telling them what they want to do to them. You got the whole world in your face. They're taking drugs, drinking, smoking, not sleeping, running around the world. That brain is just never settled. So it's just so much. It's a lot of things that have to happen. First, stop the drug use, cut down alcohol, focus on healthy living, get some good sleep, get people around you, get an accountant you can trust, get the yes men out your life. If you believe in God or a higher power, a lot of times that will help you make it to the next level.
I definitely agree with you on that.
I like how you put in there, like with social media, a lot of these people, it's a very good way to get your marketable edge and push your scalability way above where it needs to be or what you thought it would be. I think people go higher than they actually thought, and it's just too much. So what the social media is doing is actually the death of them. In some cases. I look in New York City right now, in the Bronx, Queens, and Brooklyn. Ain't no community centers right now like there was back then. They took them all down. There is some, but it's not the way it used to be. So it's more of every man for himself. And so I empathize with the struggle of these kids today, because it's hard. So how do we build that back to where it was?
That's an interesting question, to be honest with you, because I don't think it ever was. It was, personally. And I can only tell you that because, again, I mentioned again, I'm a product of those streets. Mm-hmm. And when you grow up in these communities, and I know you yourself are privy to them, especially because of your circle, you know, being my brother, the problem really comes into that there's been a problem since forever. And even in my research, they even talked about it. You know, when you look at things like right now, Jacksonville's at war, and they've been at war for a while, Jacksonville, Florida, and they making music about this war. Like one of the songs, I legitimately just found out the song, what is it called? Who I Smoke. I never paid attention to it much. You know, I heard it, but I never paid attention. But there's a war going on between ATK and KTA, and that's North and South versus East and West in Jacksonville. They're going at it, and they're just shooting. One of the narrators of that clip I saw said that he found that somebody said they believe it's the most deadliest period in hip hop, but in the community history going on right there, where you got babies getting shot and killed, innocent bystanders. I mean, a guy was 18 years old, shot, and then his two sisters were shot. We know his two sisters had nothing to do with anything. And it was just so much violence going on. I didn't even finish the clip. I said, hey, I got to separate myself so I can be in the right energy for this moment. Because until we address the poverty issues that goes on in the community, until we stop turning the backs on the issues, the economic issues, the food deserts, the education, till we stop, like Cannabis said, the decimating our population, the women. It's called socialism. And his verse on how come. Like, until we stop locking up guys on petty stuff, which they're getting better at. We know in a recent year, they've let people out who nonviolent offenders for petty, weed possession and stuff like that. But until we truly change the incarceration rates of the minority communities, and I'm going to leave it as a blanket minority communities, and until we start improving the community instead of gentrifying the communities, then we're going to continue this cycle. And we say nothing's new underneath the sun. So all we're doing, we're just repeating history, and the music is just telling the story. Unfortunately, the youth don't care. They're numb to a lot of it. They have a lot more PTSD than some of us soldiers have. Because I tell everybody, I see my first dead body before I raise my right hand. And that's sad. No child should ever have to see a dead body on the streets. But imagine the impact that had on me, that I knew what war sounded like before Call of Duty came out. You know what I'm saying? So this is the real life that we growing up in, where I have 13-year-olds asking me what set I claim. I'm not going to say exactly what they said because it's gang affiliated, but you know what I'm saying? I wasn't even aware because I'd been removed from it, went to the suburbs. So when I came back into the hood, I was out of pocket, and they called me out on it. And before I realized it, I was like, oh, Poindexter, I'm cool. Nothing going on here. I had to become square because I wouldn't even prepare for the nonsense going back home. And so that's the reality that we're living with. And like I said, they were young. These wasn't OG. These wasn't 16-year-olds. These were 12, 13-year-olds checking me. And I'm 20. Come on now. This is what we face with, right?